So everybody, welcome again. Latest webinar. I don't need to give Daryl too much of a big introduction because I think everybody knows him by now, the amount of time he spent working with Scottish Ice Hockey. He's done his, he did a webinar for us, what, about 6 weeks ago now, Daryl? I think it must have been 7 weeks ago. Yep. And he's been over in Scotland 2 or 3 times in the past when we've put on some seminars and things like that. Tonight and Thursday night, Daryl's going to speak about a very important subject. It's about age-specific training. He's going to talk about what we should be doing and how we should be doing it, and just as importantly, he's going to talk about what we shouldn't be doing when we're coaching each individual age group from under 9, 11, 13, and 15. So tonight he's going to predominantly speak about under 9 and under 11. Daryl, I'm going to leave it. I'm going to just hand it over to you. But just before I do, usual rules apply, guys. If you any questions, stick them in the chat box. And the best way to view the webinars is to do it through speaker view and not gallery view. That way you see just the person speaking on the screen and not everybody's face. Okay, doc. Daryl, so yours.
Thanks, Lynchy. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule to come on. Can everybody see that right now? I've just shared my screen. This is the first stage. I'd just like to say, like I said, thank you very much for everyone. And this kind of came about last time we were talking, and I was asked if I had anything that I wanted to do for coaches. Could I do it? And I said, yeah, of course. I can come up with some things. And this is some of the stuff that we've used in Hungary last couple of months, trying to get coaches ready for the off season. Well, for the off season and the new season that will start in August of this year. So. And it's a fairly important subject because a lot of people, depending on what you're doing or where you're coaching at or how you're coaching, they spend a lot of time coaching the way they last played. You know, it's a lot of coaches think, well, you know what, this was a great drill when I played, but you last played 10 years ago, and that was at semi-pro level or a senior level, and you're coaching under 10s or under 9s. So it's a lot of us try our best, and we think, and they're just a way of actually trying to find out some information and there's certain processes that you should go through and certain things that you could do. And I've got a lot of things open on my computer so I can actually show you a load of things. And then when I'll ship them over to Scotland so you guys can have all this information. Okay. So let's start off. I don't know if you guys know, I know a few people kind of know who I am, or as Lynchy said, my father was actually Scottish, so that's why when I was working for Ice Hockey UK, I spent quite a bit of time in Scotland and wanted to spend time up there. But I'm 61 years old. I was born in Canada. I have 2 daughters, one who's 31 and the other one who's 22. The one who's 31, she lives in Nottingham. The one that's 22 lives in my home in Switzerland, in Zurich. She's now going to university. I lived in Great Britain for 24 years. Switzerland now for over 17, and I've spent the last 8 years, as you can see at the bottom, in Hungary. But I'm back and forth between the 2 places, except for the last year where I've hardly been back to Switzerland because I just can't get into Switzerland without getting tests or vaccines, and they're almost non-existent here in Hungary at the moment. So during my coaching time, I was a Canadian Advanced Level 1 coach, and I also spent 10 years in Switzerland at the IIHF as their sports development manager. So spent a lot of time developing all levels of the sport, except for refereeing. They had their own area and all that, but so there's a lot of coach development, which I was very, very accustomed to, and also player development. I played for the Nottingham Panthers, including the first championship year in 1988, I believe. So I stopped playing at the end of 80. I stopped playing at the end of 89. I coached professionally in Great Britain. I coached in Nottingham system and Sheffield system, and also coached for Coach Telford for a while too. I also worked as the technical director and coaching director for Ice Hockey UK, and then before I got the job to go to Switzerland. And during my time in Great Britain, I was lucky enough to coach the Great Britain under-18 team. Lynchy played for me in my first year. That was quite an interesting season for me, because the level that you're dealing with and the people. And I was lucky enough in 1997 to win a gold medal and promotion from the Seapool when we were in Romania. So that was it. And then these last 8 years, I've been working in Hungary as a mentor. We're working in basically in the coaching program, but also doing some club mentoring and coach mentoring too along the way. And this picture of me was taken in 2007 when I was in China. I'm eating deep fried maggots. It's a delicacy there. It's very, very nice, actually, to be quite fair. So I realized when I ate that, I could probably eat food in just about any country, including Hungary and Scotland. Deep fried Mars bars are probably a little bit out of my taste level, so I don't think I'll be ever eating them. And over this last couple of years, a couple other things that happened. I now have 2 grandchildren. My daughter in Great Britain has Archie. He's now turned 5. It's kind of weird. I mean, you don't have to answer this, but just think about it. Who's got children? Well, it's interesting seeing children and having children and saying, geez, that's just like me. But seeing grandchildren and you think, oh my God, that's just like me. So Archie's very much like that. And this is Bonnie. She's just turned 2. And she picked up the stick in the house and her mom says, I can't believe it. She held it correctly. So I think maybe she will be the hockey player in the family. Could be another player for Great Britain's women's team. So we'll see what happens. So that's enough about me. I hope got a bit of a disclaimer here for everyone. I want to apologize. You will hear about Hungary on this. And some of the things that you'll see here will be under 10 and under 12, because those are the numbers that we work. But I've tried to equate them a little bit to your system too, as U9s and U11s and that. I swear a little. I will also talk about the IIHF a little. I swear a little bit too much, but if you ever move to another country that isn't English speaking, it doesn't really mean that much to people. So unfortunately, it's given me carte blanche to be able to do that. Some of the things I'm going to explain, I have no problems with people disagreeing or wanting to ask questions here. There's only opinions here. Some of them are good, some of them aren't so good, but I'm always open to any type of questions and debate. Hopefully we have some time tonight or on Thursday that I can maybe explain some things. People can try and say some things and all that, because these things are very difficult to do. We've discovered here in Hungary, we have a lot of stuff going on with our mentors, and it's easy to do a coaching course or a mentor course when you're in front of the people. When you're sitting at a computer like you guys are and I am, it makes it a little bit different, a little bit harder for interaction between the people. And that's one thing that I would like to, if anybody has any questions, if you want to write them down, either send them into the chat or wait till we have a break and then you can ask the questions and go from there. Oh, I don't know if you've seen this. If you have, I'm sorry. This is, I guess, my favorite video, but my question here is what is ice hockey? And to me, this is exactly what ice hockey is. That's not playing. Well, that sucks, doesn't it?
Please, okay. Daryl, it's not playing, Daryl. See if you have.
No, it's not. Okay. And you know what? I'm not going to go searching through my computer looking for it. So, okay. So what is hockey? It's a sport that every other sport wants to be. Why is that? It's the world's fastest team sport. There's lots of action in hockey. It's tough, it's physical, but it's quick and it's very, very skillful. But from a coach's point of view and from putting a team together, I look at it as this. We play as a group and we win as a group. Very, very rarely do we see guys pointing that name on their back. They're more concerned about the logo on their front. And that's a really good thing about hockey. It's not look who I am, it's look who we are. And we use the we word an awful lot in this sport. The other thing is it's a game of equal and opposite sides. Balance. We have offense, we have defense. If the offense is doing something, the defense has to do something to counteract that, and back and forth. So it's a very, very balanced game and a very game that you can actually look at from many, many sides. And it can be quite intricate if you want it to be. And for me, it's the greatest sport in the world. I'm lucky. I've made my living now for 21 years out of hockey. Part-time before that, I made it for another 15 years before that. So it's let me travel the world. It's given me lots of opportunities. But I know a lot of people. It's given an awful lot of opportunities to a chance to do a lot of things if people get involved in the sport. And this is some things that you have to understand is we're not only are we making hockey players, we're helping develop good adults. And that's the most important thing here. So Just very, very quickly, the Hungarian ice hockey philosophy, development of the player and the person. This is what I'm talking about. We're not just developing players, we're developing people. If you don't develop any good hockey players or pro hockey players or NHL hockey players, we develop a lot of really, really good people, and you've done a great job. And that's what the goal is. We had a time in British hockey, and I know they had it here in Hungary, that we had a problem that we could not select players that weren't assholes. And I've seen it, I've got a video, maybe I'll play it on Thursday, called the no asshole rule. And at one point we just stopped. We developed enough good hockey players so we didn't have to take the guys that personally and socially were not very, very good, only because they were good hockey players. And that's what we need to look at. Because if you think about it here, I'll ask you a question, and you think about this, because the question is exactly the same in Hungary, because I asked the same question in Hungary. How many NHL players do we have? The answer, both countries, none. How many players do we have drafted? Hungary have had 5, I think, drafted, maybe 4. I know Great Britain's have at least 3 drafted. But if we don't have any NHL players, and not many are getting drafted, why are we teaching kids how to play hockey? Isn't it to be the best? Well, yes, that's one aspect of it, but that's not the main aspect here. The main aspect here is to teach the children, and give them some rules to work by, some rules to live by too. You know, things like discipline and good habits. We'll talk an awful lot about this in the next 2 days, about good habits and doing that. So that's the first thing you have to realize. You're not teaching hockey players. You're teaching children to be hockey players and good people. Our first hockey priority, to understand and teach the fundamental skills of ice hockey. That's the very, very first thing we want them to think about. Can they skate? Can they teach them how to shoot? Teach them how to pass? Do those things. And then the end goal we have in Hungary is to play a technical offensive game with a solid base. Solid in every single way, defensively, offensively, game sense, all that. But that is not the first thing we look at. We look to get there, by teaching the fundamental skills to start with. So goals and objectives that we look at when we're teaching. Know the appropriate focus for each age level. Focus on this program is from beginners up to 15, 16, or in this case, it'll be 13, 14, because right now we're still working on the 15, 16 one, which I can get to you when we have it. Teach the right skills at the right level. Objectives. These are the strategies that we use to try and get to our goals. Importance of the development pyramid. Don't worry, we'll get to that. Build on the previous level. Because if you don't have the level before, you can't teach the level that they should be doing because the base isn't there. So you need to work there. And skills and concepts specific for each level for the players to play. You know, a lot of times, I know a lot of people have theories or thoughts on this, but a lot of this information is when you get on the ice, nobody, when you sign for Kirkcaldy as a coach or Dumfries or wherever, they don't give you a little manual and say, okay, fine, here you go. These are the things we want you to do at every age. Now, maybe they do, and that's good. But a lot of times we're left to our own devices. And the thing is to try and find out exactly what nations are. And most of this information that I'll do in these next 2 days have come from the Swedish Federation. We have a Swedish development manager or development director who's actually going to be leaving us soon. But he's got these. He's translated this and put more stuff in for literally the Hungarian program. So we have some things knowing the way our kids do things and trying to do this. But it's nice to have a little bit of a checklist and a goals that you can think, okay, I'm doing this. What's the next thing that we need to work on? Because as coaches, sometimes we just want to move on to the next level. What's the objective of a lot of U9 coaches? To be U11 coaches, and then to be U13 coaches. Well, you know what? Let's do the best job we can at that beginning level, the first stage of what we're doing, and do the right things. And if you do that, you will get the precious chance to move on and move on to other and higher levels. Okay, here's the development period we have in Hungary. This is exclusively the way we have it in Hungary. We have hockey, we have U8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, and 20 championships. Actually, the 20 championships the last couple of years have been U21 because we're trying to keep players in the game a little bit longer. And the way we actually develop our players is in this aspect. The local coaches, the local clubs, and all that, they work with between 8 and 14 years old. Those groups, the beginners and up to that. They get, as I said, we have a mentor program that mentors go in and work with some of the clubs to help them out and do this. We start having national teams at 14, and we've done it this year because of the COVID situation. We've done it where our national teams we have 3 different areas that we go with. We'll go with the West, the Central, and the East. Considering that Budapest has half the amount of players in the whole country, we have to kind of manipulate that a little bit. So this is where the regional teams. If we have a full regional program going on, we'll have 4 teams that will play in that program, play against each other and practice. The same practices are run. And then we start working the players up in their development levels through U17 and 18, through 20. We have a pro league here, but we also have 2 teams that play, just 2 teams this year that play outside of the country, one in the Austrian league and one in the Slovakian league. And then we look at putting our national team together from that. So this is the way, this is one of the many development pyramids we have for national team development and player development on this side. This is the way we look at it. So, hockey basics. What are we looking at hockey basics? I think everybody probably knows most of these here. Technical skills, making sure they have physical skills and tactical, mental skills, maybe social skills a little bit different, you're not sure of, and lifestyle. But let's break it down. These are the things that we're looking at as an overall hockey player. We're not looking at many 8-year-olds to have good areas and be good at all these areas. And there's something that coach said to me, actually, it was our development director, Jim. He said to us, is that if a player in the under 14 level at our national teams, he's got a bad attitude, it's okay. Stay with him if he's a good hockey player. If by the time he gets to 15 and 16, he's still got the attitude, then it's too late now. Now he can't be part of the team. But so you're willing to tolerate it at a certain age if the skills are there, because because of the growth of the person on his social skills, his mental skills, his lifestyle, being in his emotional skills, he will maybe outgrow that. Maybe he'll understand and start to come around. And it makes it a lot easier and to go from that. So the idea is not getting rid of kids at too early an age just because they have just because they got a little bit of behavioral problems or they're a little bit overly emotional or those type of things. Now, if it's disruptive, then that's another thing that we have to work with. It's just something to think about here. But these are this is, and then what all these things add to it together is that the player can play hockey. He's got good hockey sense or game sense, and he has an idea what he's doing, and he can be a well-rounded overall hockey player. So age-appropriate fundamentals, age-appropriate training for them that size to make it easier for them to be able to learn and go from there. An age-appropriate way of doing things, so you don't move too quickly into skills that the players aren't capable of doing. More player activity, so they're active on the ice. Honestly, kids learn nothing by standing in line waiting for their turn, especially if they're waiting for a minute at a time, 2 minutes at a time. There's nothing learned there. Get them doing it. Get them working and get them on top of that. Let them get there. Get onto the ice and actually do the skills that you're trying to teach them. There's increased puck time. That means they can get closer to the puck. In the game, we only have 1 puck. And when we're doing game-like drills, yes, we should really only use 1 puck. But when we're in a practice, if we're doing a shooting practice, then a kid should take 150 shots during the practice. It's a shooting practice. Or if it's stick handling practice, you should have this puck on the stick the whole time. Increase the level of competition. This is something that we talk about a lot here because kids can get very lazy and they don't compete. And you'll get maybe the 1 or 2 players that are very competitive, and all the rest are, players need to be pushed a little bit by their coaches, not pushed and threatened, but pushed in a way that you make something competitive, so they can go after that. So they can, there's something really good about having to do this to win this, or get the puck before my teammate does. And finally, a systematic education program for the players. We're not talking for the coaches, for the players. So it's a step-by-step process of them coming through, so that one skill leads into the next skill. And sometimes we don't do that as coaches. We jump around, or we see something good on YouTube. We want to use that, or we miss stages up. Hey, we've all done it. I know that. So here's the conceptual approach. And right now I've got from U8 right through to U20, because we had that. But basically, we will only go up to U14 here. So at the bottom, you're talking about fundamentals, fun, learn to love the game. Then we're talking a little bit more about skills at U10 level, skating, puck skills, shooting. Then we start getting a little bit more game-like, but not much more, just so the kids know where they're standing sometimes on the ice. Then we start getting into concepts, and this is a word we use a lot here. Concepts, not tactics, concepts. There's specific thing. It's an easier way to teach things when the players understand and they can actually make their own decision, which is the most important thing here. Then when you start to get into U16, you get team play and off ice. We're not talking about them starting off ice there. We're talking about them becoming really dedicated in off ice at this point. Off ice in Sweden starts at under 10s, under 12s. Here it's the same thing, because they have a lot of time, they got a lot of ice time, they got a lot of time for kids to come in. And when they dedicate to a sport in a country like Hungary, they dedicate totally to it. They don't do anything else, which isn't a great way of doing things, to be quite fair. And then we get U18 as specialty teams, and then intensity and compete level at your top level, because those players are looking at going into the pros. Here's how we kind of connect all the ages together. And, whether we're talking 14s, 15s, U18s, U17s, however, this is very much the way these kind of skills, if players are good enough at 14, then maybe at U14, then maybe they should be playing in getting some games in U16. Same at U18. So the skills are that they move forward. Some players might be a little bit quicker, but the idea is so they can play in their own level and they play at other levels. This is one of the challenges we've had here, but I've also seen it in Britain when I was in Britain, that players, he's always so good. Let's play him up a level. Let's play him up 2 levels. All of a sudden he's playing, and instead of being on the top line and the best player, he's one of the middle 6 players, maybe even further down than that. Sometimes kids need, especially when they're younger, an opportunity to be the best player. Not all the time. Yes, you can push them, but there's also an opportunity for them to play in their own age group and with their own peers. Because not only do they feel better about themselves and they're not held back, it also helps motivate or pull along the other players that are playing at that level too. This looks pretty complicated, doesn't it? This is our national team program, our development program, that we look for the way we develop hockey players in Hungary. And this is based completely on the Swedish program. They start playing, we recruit them. We have a huge recruitment program, lots of working with schools and that, bringing kids in, schools coming from school every day for 6 months to the rink to go skating and all that. We have some programs here where I am here in Budapest right now. They've got a new rink that went up 2 years ago. They have something like 700 kids coming per week coming to their schools program when the schools are open, and they can bring them to the rink. They were last year. So, but this is a lot of work that they've actually done getting the kids to come through. So we go through U8, U10s, and the basic thing here is we just want them to love hockey. You know how we know if they love hockey? They keep coming back. It's as simple as that. It's some of us think it's really complicated. We can do tests, and I can show you tests that you can use with your youngsters later on. But the most important thing here is that if they keep coming back, they love hockey, and then we can start to go. We start to make a decision around about this age here, around the age of 13 in Hungary. We send so many players up into the elite track. Basically, the way we work here is the U14 team has 80 players. working with it. The U15 team has 60 players, and this team, the U16, have around about 30 players. Being a little bit less this year, but those are the elite. Now, if you're talking 80 players out of 250 players, that's a pretty big percentage actually. But we start having them in when we have national team camps, and then when we start to go to tournaments, then the players are worked down. U18 and U20, they're working with 17 players and 3 goalkeepers. That's all they have in their camps. They're trying to work with the best of the best, the elite. Now, what happens to these players? Hey, they're hockey for life. We've got them playing and playing. And maybe, just maybe, every once in a while, we might have somebody who steps over, and he's very small here. He's about 4'7" tall here. But by the time he gets to here, to the time he gets about 15, all of a sudden he's got tremendous coordination and he's 6 foot tall. Well, we'd be stupid not to look at someone like that. But players who leave this process, they can come into our. There's the league is still there. So they can still play hockey for life and go from there. And the players that end up leaving, what happens with them? Well, they become Hungarian speakers. Others. There you go. They become our next level coaches, team managers, equipment managers, referees, staff. Selling programs, sponsors, supporters. The board they work at running, being in clubs and being involved in clubs, and spectators. We try and keep them in the sport in other ways too. This is something that instead of going with 50, we'll get 100 players, 100 players, 100 players, 100 players, 100. When players get to be about 16, 17 years old, there's only so many of them are probably going to make it through. So when you're doing elites, not both, elite level, we go with the best. Now, if we got a lot more players here, there's a lot more players that can actually come into this elite level too. Because players grow at different times, they develop at different times. And here's the 1,000 hours rule or whatever, however, the players to get, especially when they get to the age of 15 or 16 years old, this is most applicable. 6 years, 11 months of the year, 6 days a week, 3 hours a day practice. And now that's just so you have a chance to be an elite player if you want to do it. And I'll be honest with you, that's what they're doing in Sweden. That's what they're doing in Finland. That's now what they're doing in the United States and all these other countries. And I understand, hey, I spend a lot of my time in Great Britain. You're going to say to me, 3 hours a day, we only get 1 hour a week. Yeah, but we're also talking about off-ice training, inline skating, shooting a puck against a wall for a couple of hours. All those things add up into that development process. And that's what you need to be looking with your kids. And what it comes down to very much, it's not unrealistic. It's just to get them to get into that attitude. Because at the end of the day, we've developed some very good hockey players in Great Britain. There's some very good hockey players. Hey, let's face it, your team's in the A pool. The Hungarians aren't at the moment. And those came from players doing a lot of these things. Okay, that's just a preamble here. Let's look at some of the players here. So let's look at this. What we're looking at is core skills, basic skills, and the core skills here are skills that players should have, should be worked on for the players, and they should be using and be able to do before you start moving on to the next level of development. Okay, things like basic stance, hockey posture, edges, starting and stopping from skating, skating forwards and backwards, specifically forwards, definitely. Then puck control, doing all the puck control, first stationary, and if they're good enough, then they start doing it with movement. And then eventually, just adding in a little bit of the hockey sense, just a little bit of understanding of hockey, some terminology, where do I stand? When we have if we do something, should I be standing here? Should I be standing there? Just little things like that. Where are we trying to shoot the puck to the goal? Those are type of things that we need to be doing. U10s, now we're starting to get into stopping, crossovers, edges, glide turns, pivots, acceleration, backhand. Now we're starting with the back of the stick. Pass and follow as a concept. So you pass the puck and then you follow it. The basic player rules. Now, I don't know if you know the player rules. I know when I was there, we taught them, and we use them a lot here, and they're used a lot in Scandinavia. There are 4 player rules. Player with a puck, number 1. Player who's the other supporting players on the offensive team, that's number 2. Number 3 is the player who's guarding the man with the puck, and number 4 is the man the man who's guarding the players without the puck. But we don't have to teach them all that to start with. Teach them what happens if you have the puck. What can you do? Well, I can skate. Yeah. I can pass. That's good. I can stick handle. I can shoot and score. Fantastic. So now you understand some of the basics of the player rules. And if the guy that you're next to has the puck, what do you try and do? I try and stop him from skating. I try and take the puck off him. There's rule number 3. So it's very, very quickly, you can actually, don't even have to call them rules, just teach that information so they understand. Finally, a little bit of thinking here at U10, win the puck, keep the puck, and play. U12, you can see now things are starting out, there's a bit more coming in here. U12, U11, tight turns, quick feet, pivots forward to backwards, backward to forward, teaching a little bit about angling. Now we can start putting in body contact, and you can put in body contact here. Be honest, in the United States, they're teaching body contact from 8 years old. This is how they were able to sell. They used to have checking from under 12s upwards, and they moved it to under 14s. But the thing was that they would teach them how to have proper body contact and body checking skills. They would start at 8 years old, so the kids were used to it. And it's worked very well there too. So you can teach them something about getting the puck, about taking bodies. You can do it a little bit earlier than this, but not if they don't have the skating skills. Teach them a little bit more, a little bit more one-on-one. Give and go is a concept now. Now we can start to work in a little bit on the 4 player roles, what the guys without the puck do. Because a lot of children, they'll pass the puck and they'll admire the pass. Nice pass. Look at that. No, when you pass the puck, move someplace else. I actually was looking through videos for these presentations, and I found some for the hockey school that we run in Hungary. And the whole idea of the drill, the kid skates, he passes, and once you pass, you skate like hell. And not one kid skated like hell. It was like, ooh, that was a good pass. I'll just skate to the end of the line really slowly now. No, in the game, we need them skating hard. So it's a habit that we try to get them doing during practices too. Then pressure, closing the gaps, winning the battle, taking the puck, playing, scoring. And now we start to get them doing good habits. Make a good pass. Care about the passes that you're making. Make sure you're on time. If you need your skates done up, make sure you find somebody to do your skates up before you go on the ice, before it's too late. Be dressed on time. All sorts of things on and off the ice. 13, 14, go a little bit further with the turns and the quick feet. Now we're looking at deets. We're talking about kids hitting the net. Shoot to score, hit the net. Give and go concept again. And win the inside. Drive the net and score. So we're looking at players. If you're attacking, you're trying to get into the inside. If you're defending, you're trying to keep the people out of the other team out of the inside. We go to 16s, which we won't cover, but you can see now how it starts to get more developed. Ice offensive support options, how to support defensively, dedication, a lot more battling, basic team play now. And what doing here, we have full-time coaches at UA, at senior men's, senior women's, U18s, U16s, and U20 men's. So they influence what the team should do. So these are the type of way, this is the way we're playing. They don't tell them what to do. If the coaches don't want to do it, that's great. The kid's going to have to be pretty good to come out of a situation like that. But the influence from this comes, of course, from the whole national team program, who sit down and work out their playbook and the type of things that they'll be doing and teaching during practice. So And coaches spend an awful lot of time talking to the team coaches, the club coaches on a regular basis, the players and the coaches. It's something. I was in Sweden 2 years ago, and we went to their under 17, under 18 camp. And when we talked to the coaches about, well, how do you get them to do this? Oh, we leave that to the coaches of the clubs. Really? Yeah. We tell them what we need, and we trust that they do it. If they don't, then the players probably aren't going to be prepared to play the national team. And finally, we put in power play and penalty killing concepts. Here in Hungary, we have under 12 teams that there's no score putting in power play and penalty killing. Why? Especially when most of the kids can't pass or receive a pass. So that kills your power play pretty much. Teach them the skills beforehand, then let them start to do these things. And then start to teach us. If they have the skills at a certain age, I would say yes, at U14 or U13, you could probably start teaching a basic power play and a basic concept of penalty killing. But there's no need to do any of these things too early. Because at the end of the day, the more you teach tactics and even concepts at a younger age, the less time you're spending on the basic technical skills for the players to be able to play. Here's U18. Okay. Now we're spending more time and looking even deeper into what they're doing. And once again, everything's influenced by the national team coach at that age. But things with like time and space, we'll talk quite a bit about this a little bit today, and definitely quite a bit tomorrow about opening up time and space for players. And this is something that starts at the U14 age. Because you have to understand, if we don't go through all the other areas, by the time they get to 18, players aren't going to naturally learn this. Well, maybe they will, one or two, but they're not being taught it. But it's not going to suddenly come to them. It has to be a step-by-step process to get them through all the core skills when it comes to technical skills, and also playing concepts too. Finally, for our U20s. And this has worked very well. Our national team coaches all work together, so they're always, because we have one or two central places that we train at. Sometimes they'll have two teams there. Maybe they'll have one team there and one team isn't. So if that coach is around, he'll come on the ice. So he also helps. They also understand the process, and he gets to see players as they start to come through the system too. Right, so good habits. This is something that we've talked about for a long time, and it's very, very important for both the coaches and the players. Players doing something, make sure they're doing it correctly, using proper technique. We had a thing in here that says skating posture. It's something that's used by a Canadian coach we have here in Hungary. But posture is skating correctly way, not bent over, looking at his feet, head up, shoulders up, skating, hands moving forward. Make sure they're doing the right things all the time. In all their skills, they're doing the proper technique. Make sure they do it over and over and over and over and over again, repetition, but please constantly coach them. Unfortunately, here in Hungary, we have a lot of paid coaches, an awful lot of paid coaches, like everyone is paid. We have a lot of really good drill runners. I'm not saying the drills are good. I'm just saying they're really good at running drills. No coaching, no talking to the players, no correcting them. It's very, very important. And this is a skill that the first part of this is for the players, but this constant coaching is for the coaches. Good habits is to talk to the players, get to know them, talk to them, explain to them, however you do that, explain to them the way to help them to get better. Because players are lazy. They're like all of us. If there's an easy way of doing it, then they'll do it. Why are we having them do these techniques? Well, sometimes they're really difficult, but they help them during the games. But kids can't see that far into the future. They need that kind of guidance, and they need that type of correction too. And the coach has to be the one that does that. Correction. Let players try, then correct the skill. Don't, and the other thing that we see a lot here is the coach stopping the whole drill, going over and either yelling at the kid or explaining to the kid what, and everybody else is just looking at each other going, okay, what are we doing now? If this player makes a mistake, let everybody go through it once or twice. If everyone is making the mistake, stop the drill and talk to them. Explain it again. You don't have to say things like, are you stupid? Believe me, I've seen it here. No, they're not stupid. You didn't explain it correctly. Explain it to them so they understand. If it's just one player or two players, take them aside while the drill is going and just point these things out so they can go from there. Because the most important thing here is keep the practice flow going if possible. So to pull just one player out aside, say, just watch this. This is what you should be doing. Understand what you are doing and ask the questions. A lot of correction nowadays with kids is asking them questions. Why did you do that? What did you do? What did you see when you did that? How did you feel while you're doing that? Do you know what you're doing? You're doing something wrong there. Do you know what that is? Can I help you with something in there? All those type of things can work. Because you know what, on top of everything else it does, not only are you correcting them, it makes them think. And that's what you want players thinking. If you have players that are brain dead when they're on the ice, you have some challenges. Get them to think. Think about what I'm doing, evaluate what I'm doing, how I can get better at what I'm doing. Game pace. Practice this. Once the player has the skill, they have the feeling that the way it should be done, then they should be doing it at game pace, working as hard as they can, skate as hard as they can, pass as hard as they can, shoot as hard as they can, shoot to score. And that leads us into the bottom one about players competing. They have to complete, and they should compete hard all the time. And this even works right from the youngsters all the way through. Because youngsters like to race, they like to do silly things and all. Well, let's make a little bit of a competition out of it. You know, we have a great drill here in Hungary. I don't know if you can see me, but it's the infamous wrist twister. When they're actually warming up, doing the wrist. That's not a warm. Here's a warm up. Get 10 kids on the ice. Throw a puck out there. Okay, keep away. Okay, throw a second puck out there. Now it's 2 to 5. Throw a third puck out of there. Hey, that warms their wrists up pretty well too. Gets them ready, gets them excited, and they also compete for things too. And if there's kids who aren't competing, throw another puck in there so they might be able to get close to the puck. There's different ways of doing these things while still teaching and making sure everybody gets development in what they're doing. Dyslexic fingers, I'm sorry. Okay. Planning and pre-ice session. Now, I don't know what you're like with your practices. I used to be one, when I was coaching a lot in Britain, I used to be one that I'd write my practice out all the time, always did, but they were top secret when I hit the ice. When I got to the rink, no one could see the practice. And in those days, I wasn't very bright, so I couldn't figure out why the first 50 minutes of practice was just a chaos because the players didn't know what they were doing. Maybe spend some time planning, doing a little bit of a pre-ice session with them. Maybe if it's taking you 3 hours to write the practice, the kids are not going to remember it all if you explain to them for 10 minutes. But maybe they'll remember the first 2 or 3 things we're going to do. Maybe they'll have a little bit of a concept of what's going on, and they can go from there. So the pre-ice really works. During the hockey school that we have here in Hungary, we set the process down, and now works with all the national teams. Coaches go in the dressing room and do a quick explanation to the players before we go on the ice for practice. I was with our under 16s earlier this year, and it was very difficult, interesting, because my Hungarian's pretty bad. Well, to me, it's non-existent, basically. Trying to explain practices to them. There was a lot of help from the kids who could speak English. But once you start drawing stuff, kids understood. You go on the ice, you know, you're not going to leave them to it. They're going to go on the ice. You're going to explain it again. Well, at least they got a bit of an idea what you're talking about when they get out there. Continue basic skill instruction and correction. Repeat, repeat, repeat. The youngsters cannot do enough. I was watching, I don't know, I mean, you guys are all Scottish, so I mean, obviously you were watching the Masters on the weekend. I was watching the Masters, and I can remember seeing a couple of pro golfers in Canada when I lived in Canada. I was only 14 or 15. I'm watching these guys, and here's a guy hitting a golf balls 300, 400 at a time. Thinking, holy smoke. Repetition, repetition, repetition. This is the same with our kids. Get them to be doing the things as much as you can. Get them to do it over and over and over and over again. Doing it once isn't enough. Doing it 5 times isn't enough. Get them to where they're doing a similar skill or the skill you want over and over again so they get used to it. Mixture of ice pads, small, full ice, small area, fun drills, all sorts of things. So it's not boring, and they get a little bit of involvement, and it's for them it's a mixture of fun but it's also learning. A lot of kids, you say, okay, let's make sure there's variations and stuff. You know, if you do a drill and then you take it to the other side of the rink, for most kids, that's a completely different drill, especially when they're young. Holy smoke, what are we doing? Same thing. Really? Yeah, same thing. So don't be afraid to move them from the other side. Don't be able to add in a puck somewhere or have them skating backwards during something. Change things a little bit every once in a while, but make sure they're doing it and they're having fun. Good habits, proper execution and skills is the most important thing for youngsters to get better and better. And very important here. So I thought about when I was in Britain, and most teams I had one team that we had 2 practices in a week. Even the pro team I coached, we only had 4 practices a week or 3 practices a week. My coach did Delver. Here, we have between 5 and 6 practices a week, most teams. A lot of kids have 3 practices. So then I started thinking about what it might be like in Great Britain. Because of ice time availability, if you have less ice, you have to be more focused when you're on the ice. And the kids have to be more focused on the ice too. Very, very important. You can't have any screw around times. Hey, an under 10 coach here who has 3 practices a week, he can afford to screw up once a week because it isn't going to make a difference because he's still going to have 2 practices. Thankfully, some don't. Unfortunately, some of them don't do very well with any of the practices that they have. But the thing is, if you have less practice, be focused. Use the time the best you can. You can't afford to have 10 minutes explaining a drill. You can't afford to have 25 water breaks or stopping the drill every 5 minutes. Be focused and make sure your players are focused too. So here's a sample for practice that is good for most ages. A, they take 2 strides, they take a shot, then they skate the slalom. B, they do the same thing, but when they skate the slalom, they bring a puck with them. C is a passing drill. 1 man in the middle, they pass to him, and the pass comes back. So good passes. The shooting drill is D, and E is a game where we have a lot of go-kart tires here in Hungary that are at rinks. So these are here, either side. It's a 3-on-3, 4-on-4, 5-on-5, depending how many players there are. They play even size, and if you hit one of these tires, that's a goal. And the first team to knock out all the players on that side, all the tires on that side in the game. I can actually show you. I can show you tomorrow later on what it looks like because we actually did the same practice on the ice. Okay, so here's a really good website. If you need anything for any type of drills on this situation, age-appropriate drills, we advise our coaches here in Hungary to use this site. It's the ADM kids site for USA Hockey. That gets you to the main site, and if you go into coaches, and then you have all this. And what you do here, you can get practices and all that. And I believe something like 10 practices per age group that they actually do and advise, and lots of information on this website. And they actually show a lot of the information. Let me Finally, summary. No appropriate focus of each age level, the right skills to teach at the right level, the importance, obviously, of the development pyramid, how your players start to move forward, and build on development work at the previous age. Make sure they have the right skills before you start moving up to the next. If they have the proper skills, then they'll continue to grow and you can build on top of it. Focus on the skills and the concepts specific to your level. Don't think, oh, the U18s are doing something great. Yeah, but you got an under 11 team. They're not going to be able to do that. So know what your level your players is. And I'll be honest with you, my time in Great Britain, I made quite a few mistakes. It was very difficult coaching the Great Britain under 18 team at one moment. And then the next moment, going back to my under 21 team in Sheffield, or after that, it was a men's team in Sheffield, because the levels weren't the same. The U18 team was way better. So you have to understand what the level is to what you're teaching. So your expectations aren't too high for those players, and you don't discourage them by pushing them too much when they don't have the skills at that moment to be able to do that. But enjoy the journey, have fun. Okay, let me see, because I'm still sharing. Stop the share. Oh, we picked up some on the trip. Let me just see if I can find. No. Okay. Give me a second here. Kids. Things taking forever, right? Okay, let's see. Do I have it? No. No. Sorry, I'll try to go on to ADM Kids. I can't bring it up. It's a very, very good website. Like I said, there's lots of resources there. You can actually pick up all the team practices. You can actually download them and use them. And they, like I said, they have lots of videos. And there's a lot of other stuff about coaching kids right through the bottom part of their program. You have to understand the Americans decided in the late 1990s, early 2000s, that they need to get more kids in the sport. So as of 4 years ago, they had 115,000 under-8s playing in the United States. They had recruitment was fantastic. They worked hard. They got recruitment. So they have hockey everywhere in the States, and good hockey too. I mean, I guess some of you guys know Grumpy, Colin Grubb. He's doing very, very well in hockey in Houston. It's a huge hotbed of hockey in Texas. It's where the U18 World Championships will be held in a couple of weeks' time. But this is what they did, and they developed this really, really good website by going to Sweden, Finland, Canada, Russia, a lot of nations that would share with them, or they try to share and get this information, and they leave it completely open for you to use. So you can actually go in there and use whatever you need to. Okay, let me just on the share screen show you. Hopefully I can get this. No, that's hello. Okay. This is I'll send all this documentation over. This is just a little bit of a synopsis of the presentation. This presentation, just explaining some of the things that we have here, and going into a little bit more detail about some of the information that's there. I've got one of these for every age level. I've also got for some of them a sure. Guidelines. Let me just see. Also have some practices here too that can be used. This is This is one, as you can see, was written by one of our mentors. If I can get these type of things, I'll get all these sent over too. And here's a couple more. These are in French, but these are pretty good practices, obviously station-based, that we recommend can go with a lot of the stuff that's on USA Hockey. Okay. Everybody okay for a break right now, or go?
Want to just keep going, Daryl, or do you want to give us all a break?
I'm ready to roll.
Yeah, keep going. Keep going.
You played for me. You know I can speak. I'll tell you a quick story before we move on. So if I told this the last time I was on, my first year as Great Britain under-18 team, we went to Slovenia, Bled, Slovenia, which is, if you ever want to go for a lovely holiday, Bled, Slovenia is beautiful. But we ended up practicing in the rink in the town next door, Jesenice, which is where Onsikopita is from. And they have this monstrous rink, huge place. But we didn't play there because there's no hotels in Jesenice, but there is in Bled. But one day I'm sitting in my hotel room, and there's this knock on the door. Who the hell is that? And open the door. Lynchy, what do you want? He goes, Daryl, can I have your board and some pens, please? I need to explain to so-and-so, who is his roommate, what defensive zone coverage is. Okay, and all I could think when I closed the door was, well, there's a guy who's going to be a coach sometime in the future. And secondly, I need to work on my selection policy too for future years if guys have got that. It is a true story, not particularly funny, but still true. Okay, here's ADM kids. Just so we can move on before we start going to U8s and U10s. Appropriate. Explain the stuff. Specifics. Oops. Coaches. Practice plans. They have all the practice plans in there too. So there you go. This is all the stuff. This is all there that you can use. Goes right up to U18s, I believe. And that's something they make completely available to you as coaches. It's a very good organization to work with or work with. Okay. What time we got? Oh, you guys have got 9. Early for you guys.